Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolford. I'm a fourth-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together. I'm talking with Alethia Hudson today. I'm very fortunate to do so. She is the genius behind so much talent. I think it's such a beautiful project. And she is the administrator and creator of a Facebook group with more than 10,000 members. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about your sewing, how you got started and how you manage a group of that size, as well as some real life events that you do. And I also listened to your recent live video where you were talking about just about Joann's and all the games with the pattern sales and, ways that we can become more independent with our own pattern making. So I'm hoping for a nice free form conversation because you have so much to teach, which you do all the time. And I'm grateful that you are willing to come on and share all that you know with us. Well, not all that you know, because it's really not that long a program. I think it would take much longer than just a 30-minute conversation with you to teach everything that you know. But I'm just so happy to be connected to you. So thank you. So can you tell us how you got started sewing and what that sewing background looked like?
Yeah, it's funny. It's very similar to a lot of what I hear in the sewing community. I was a little girl, about 8 years old. My mother, she was a registered nurse, and she actually would sew and make all of our clothes. And she'd come home midnight or, late at night sometimes, and I would just sit and watch her sew. And so I would take some of her scraps and create clothing for my doll. And I think she saw that I had a real interest in it. And so probably, I guess around about 9.5, 10 years old, she signed me up for this sewing class. It was a singer sewing class in our local area. But I wasn't old enough to take the class, but I was tall. And so I looked like I was old enough. And so she kind of fudged on my age a little bit just to get me in class. And so,
That's a mother's love for you right there. It's like, she can do it. I believe in her.
Exactly. She was determined. So, she wasn't going to let that stop that. But, so I did that. And that's where it started. Went through home economics in middle school. We didn't have it in high school. And that was about the extent of my, I guess you would say, formal education. And I went through, from there, I soaked up everything I could. High school, I looked at all kinds of fashion magazines, W magazine, Vogue magazine, 17 magazine. I watched stuff on TV. I don't know if you ever remember the show Style with Elsa Clinch. It was a segment.
No, I don't. I remember her name, but I don't remember. So she had a show.
Yeah, it was a show called Style. She was the host of that show, and it was a segment. It was divided in three. It was divided in three segments: fashion, beauty tips, and then it was home decor. And so I watched that show religiously. That was like my online YouTube at that time, because we didn't have YouTube back then, but we had PBS and all of those. So I would watch on PBS shows like Sandra Benzina.
Yes, our Sewing with Nancy. Now that's what I remember.
Sewing with Nancy was like our Mimi G back then.
Yes, that's so true. I met her in real life. Sewing with Nancy. I was in graduate school at the time, and I had a baby. He was 1 year old, and we went up to her. She had a shop up in a place called Sun Prairie, I believe. And it had a huge sale. Oh my gosh, Alethia, they had all this stuff that's in the catalog at discount prices. Plus they had classes. And so I'm pushing the baby stroller around, and I bump into her, not with my baby, thank goodness, but she was like, "Oh, hey, welcome." And I was like, "Riley," that's my son's name. Now he's an adult, but I was like, "That's so with Nancy. That's Nancy sewing with Nancy." Of course, he's a baby. He doesn't care. But that was like a real high point of my visit. Like,
Wow.
really. And she was so nice.
I would love to.
And so, yes, so you watched a lot of stuff on TV.
I did. I mean, and at that time, like I said, we have YouTube University now, but we didn't have
True.
website. You know, we didn't have internet then. We had TV, PBS. And so Nancy Zeman had this program where you could rent videos out for like 2 weeks at a time for different
Yes.
programs, and you can learn stuff, and then you can return them, and you can rent something else out, return it. And so I did that for a long time. That's how I came familiar with people like Roberta Carr, who was a clothing designer. She taught that. Sue Beamer, who was another one?
Yes.
Now she creates wedding gowns and stuff. There was so many different ones that I learned and gleaned from. So I soaked up everything I could, and through that process, and also through as I got older, I became married. I did this, on the side. I would take in alterations, something I hated. Oh, I hated alterations.
I still do. I admire you for doing that. I can't stand it. That's like my husband's like, "Oh, I bought these pants. They're too long." And I was like, "Well, the dry cleaner will only charge you $5 to hem those pants." And he's like, "But you got 3 sewing machines down here." I'm like, "Yeah, and none of them want to hem your pants, honey. I'm so sorry."
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. But that's the real of it. Who wants to take stuff apart just to put it back? But I found out that was the one thing that really taught me. That was God's way of teaching me, because of course I had to take it apart. I had to find out how to put it back together. So going inside of garments was a way I found out how they were constructed. And so I was able to take what I learned and applied it to future projects that I was actually creating. So I learned how to do stuff in a professional way. Learn what interfaces was, what interfaces to use, what techniques to use, different things like that. So what I hated actually became my teacher.
That's amazing. It's so wise. It's so wise so that you never then become afraid of anything. And that's something I always find very disappointing or sad when I'm talking to new sewists or listening to sewing groups, and they're like, "Oh, I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that." And I'm like, there's nothing at the sewing machine that should scare you. I mean, you drive a car. That is dangerous, but no one gets in their car and says, "I'm afraid to drive. I'm afraid." No, but we have all this fear. Well, not we, some people, many people do, about making mistakes or something like that. And so I was talking with Benita Hinton, who does embroidery on leather. And you know how leather is. It is very unforgiving. Once you poke that hole, there is no unpoking it. And she talked about she never had that fear because, similar to our stories, she sewed with leather when she first started sewing as a child. Her aunt worked at a leather factory and would bring home scraps, and that's how she would make her doll clothes, out of leather scraps. And so she never developed this kind of fear or anxiety or concern. And I think that what you're describing so beautifully is, I think that's a larger metaphor for life too. The thing that you most are concerned or fearful or worried about, just face it head on. And now you have become such a talented seamster and seamstress and, alterer and all of these things that you're able to create because you trust yourself and you taught yourself. And so you learned a lot through all the videos that you're describing and that type of education. And it's like you created your own YouTube before there was a YouTube. And I love this lesson of deconstructing in order to learn construction. I think that's it's such an organic way to learn something. And how do you incorporate that into your sewing today? Do you still find that you do that, or do you not need to do that anymore?
Oh no, every day I'm learning. I always tell people you never get to a place where you stop learning or you feel like you've learned it all. You might as well just give up and go home, be with the Lord. 'Cause, it's always, and that's how life is. It's life is pretty much like that. We feel like a lot of times we deconstruct it, feel like stuff fall apart before it comes together. But I always have this mindset that if it's been done, if somebody else has done it, I can do it. So I have that mindset going into anything. And I find myself a lot of times taking on challenges, projects now that I'm challenged to do something that I haven't done before. Whether it's an embellishment technique, whether it's a different type of seam or stitching or placement, you know. But I stretch myself and I encourage others, in the group. Stretch yourself, do something you haven't done before. Don't stay in the same thing because that's how you grow. That's how you learn. That's
Mm-hmm.
how you evolve,
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love this idea that I have a similar philosophy, that I feel like what I said, everything that I took, people are like, oh, I can't believe you made that dress, or I can't believe you made that coat. And I'm like, everything you have on was made by somebody. Why not you?
Right. Exactly.
And that, and so that helped me. So I made umbrellas. I've made umbrellas. I've made shoes. I've made raincoats. I mean, all of these are things that can be made. It's not like it's sorcery or witchcraft or something that's like, oh, this is magic. It's just, hard work and focus and a real strong desire to do it. And so I love how you encourage people to take risks. And sure, at first it might not work out or it might not look as good as it's going to look the 10th time you've done it, but at least you can. And I think that there's a lot of power in that. So can we talk about your sewing group? So I think we're coming up on the anniversary of your group. Facebook says you started the group in October 19th of 2019, so of 2016. So you're heading into you're almost at 3-year anniversary. By the time this episode releases, you'll be at your 3-year anniversary with your group. So tell me about how or why you decided to start that, and what have you learned in the process?
Well, first of all, I've learned to not give up. I actually started So Much Talent in 2008 on another platform.
Oh.
And it's a lot of people don't know that.
So you're like heading, this is like your 11th year anniversary, not your 3rd. That's just a Facebook anniversary.
That's just a Facebook anniversary, right?
Okay, friend, tell us more, please.
Many of my followers have been with me since 2008, and I actually started this for a local type situation, just to get with other designers and creators and fashion designers and sewers. But it was funny because none of the locals seemed like they were biting. I thought, I've seen other people with blogs, and I said, well, that's a nice way to kind of communicate with people, so maybe I'll do that. Well, it just seemed like it wasn't doing anything. And for like 5 years off and on, I tried to stop the blog, and the Lord would tell me, no, keep it going. I would say, tell the people that were following, I'm going to end the blog, you have content, you might want to get your content. And so whereas I didn't think people were paying attention because I had so much content that I was putting up there, so much information. And they would say, no, don't do it, don't do it. So that went on for like 5 years, and I reached maybe 750 people.
Wow.
But something happened where I lost all my content. This particular platform was switching over somehow. And somehow I lost my content. But I felt like that was God's way of saying, okay, that has come to an end. And I ended up on Periscope being nosy.
Okay.
And really, and somehow Periscope, it was odd for me because believe it or not, contrary to popular belief, I can talk now, but before I was pretty shy, and I would never imagine myself on a international platform like Periscope talking to people live. And so I just started growing a following, and then we moved over to Facebook as Paracrafters with another group of ladies, a couple of other ladies. But then the Lord told me, he said, no, I didn't. I told you to do So Much Talent. So
to have your own thing, to do your own platform, not to kind of share it with another set of folks.
Right. He said, I told you to do So Much Talent. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll be starting So Much Talent, So when I did that, that was 2016, like you said, and I just realized that last night that this was the anniversary. But when I did that in 2016, unbeknownst to me, when I did what God asked me to do, my following grew on So Much Talent to 10,000 folks in 2 years. Now, mind you, it was 750 on the other platform, but it grew. Now, I wasn't in it for the numbers. That's not what I was doing. I just wanted a
Right.
place where I could showcase other people's talent. That's the whole premise of So Much Talent, to expose the much talent that's out there. You know, there's many different things to sew as fashion designers, creators, and crafters. And I just wanted to have a platform where we could see all of that. And so people just start gravitating towards, So Much Talent. And now it's a group of people who can share what they make in confidence and be proud of it. And we don't bash anybody. I don't tolerate, the negativity or people. It's okay to give criticism, but constructive criticism and not negative
Right.
criticism to make people feel bad about what they do,
Exactly. And you can critique in love. You really can. And you can critique in love. And I think that feedback is a gift, that you can say, okay, I see what you've done here, but maybe next time make sure you're, keeping your eye or whatever. You can offer this kind of stuff and it doesn't have to come from a place of contempt or hostility.
Exactly. Yeah, we nipped that in the bud real quick. And so it's been a pretty pleasant place to, to hang out in.
I'm joined today by Alethia Hudson, the creator of So Much Talent. This is an online group on Facebook that has more than 10,000 members. Stay tuned to learn more about how Alethia feels about the rising changes at Joann's, as well as the way that her project is growing in real life and online. Stitch Please, the Black Women Stitch podcast, talks a lot about sewing. But if you'd like to see some of what we're discussing, we invite you to follow us on the socials. On Facebook, you can find us at Stitch Please, and on Instagram, you can find us at Black Women Stitch. On Instagram, you'll find a lot of great pictures and compelling social commentary. In addition, you can participate in a weekly live Instagram chat at 3 p.m. on Thursdays at Eastern Standard Time. So follow us on the socials, Facebook at Stitch Please and Instagram at Black Women Stitch, and get your stitch together. I'm delighted to be here talking today with Alethia Hudson of So Much Talent. Now we're going to hear more about how Alethia grows her platform and manages it, as well as extending that platform from an online community, branching out into real life events. Stay tuned.
I wanted to talk some about your most recent video, as well as talking a little bit about some of the collaborations that you've done. I believe you had a retreat last year, so I'd love to talk more about some of the real life events that you've done, in addition to kind of pulling people from all over the world to come to your platform and to show their stuff. I think that, sewers and quilters, we like showing the stuff off that we make. I mean, like, particularly for a community of like-minded people, considering that so often folks, either, our family can only take so much of us telling them about how much we love sewing. And, we need to share that more broadly. And so I would love to talk now about like your real life events. I know you've done some classes and challenges that you're working on, but tell us about the retreat that you hosted last year and what the future plans for that event looks like.
Well, we've actually had our second retreat this year. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah, last year we started, and that was another endeavor, something I had never done before, but I believed it was something that God was leading me to do. And again, I had never done corporate events like that or had no clue. But I have a wonderful team of admins that
good
and support me, and I develop a committee, that can help do this, and so I don't have to do it by myself. And so we did. We had lots of sponsors. We had people like Sew Magazine, Lilu Designs. I like to work with a lot of independent
Yes.
crafters and designers because, we get a lot of corporate sponsorship, but sometimes the independent crafters and creators, go unheard. And so I seek out those first, to give
Yes.
exposure because that's what so much talent is about. But we don't
Yes.
negate the corporate sponsors. And so we did have, a lot of people to help in that area. But the first retreat last year, we met here in my hometown, Augusta, Georgia. And we did a 3-day retreat where we had seminars. So I had Gentleman Jim and Victoria Bailey,
Yes.
1,000 sewing hours down. And I also taught, and so that was a lot of fun. And then we had a sew day. We just spent the whole day sewing it. And then we had to end it off. We had a high society gala where everyone could wear what they created, semi-formal or formal. And we had dinner and live music. And it was a lot of fun. And it was a good thing to bring people, like you said, from all over California, Texas, and different areas of the United States to get to know each other in person.
Yes.
And
Yes.
It was a lot of fun.
And so this year's event, did you do anything different or did you do some of the similar things but with different folks?
This year, we had some of the same people come. We had some new folks come in. But this year we went to right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in Hampton, to a retreat. And it was a place that we could all be in one general location. But this time we did a shopping trip in Atlanta. So one day we did one full day of seminars where I had Elizabeth Farr from Elizabeth Made This, Ayana Glaze with Ayana Glaze Designs, and also had Monica Tete with That's So Monica.
That's So Monica, yes. I met up with her once. She had a sewing event in, she does that monthly sew along in Dallas. And I happened to be in Dallas for work. And so it was funny because I'm a university professor, so I go off and give lectures and stuff. And I said, well, you want me to come in February, please include this Saturday in that trip because I want to go sew with Monica. And so they did. And I got a chance to meet her and her crew out in Dallas, and they were delightful. So tell us a bit. I saw some of those photos. So did you get a bus together? And is that how you did it? I think I might have seen some pics of y'all doing a bus tour from place to place. Where did you go?
We did a bus tour, and that was a lot of fun just to get a bunch of women that love fabric and sewing and on a bus. Oh, it was so much fun. But we took a trip to Fine Fabrics, one of the largest places in Atlanta, and I guess it's a hot spot in Atlanta. Beautiful fabric, lots and lots of fabric, and we met a lot of people there. So it's like a meetup hub for sewers. Fabrics was just wonderful and priced just right. We also went to Gail K Fabrics. It was another beautiful place to shop. We ate, did our luncheon there, but then we came back and we had our sewcation, so to speak. We all did our sewing and had little things that we did. We had a fabric swap, pattern swap, and it was just a lot of fun. And so we're going to do it. We're already planning now for next year. Next year we'll be in New York.
Oh, that's great. So you were able to move from so the first time you did it, you had it near you. And then the second time you did it, you had it a little bit further out from you. And then now for the third one, for 2020, you're planning it up in New York City or just somewhere in New York State?
Yeah, New York City. And we want to reach the fabric district. So our goal is to shop the fabric district. But the premise of that is just to reach out in different areas because so much talent reaches out to so many different spots in the United States. Like we have a group in the DMV area. So, and we have our local meetup group here. We have meetup groups, all over. So we just want to kind of branch out and instead of standing still, we want to go out, travel out. And so that's the premise behind that. So we just keep it moving, keep it exciting, and just see what's out there, what's in other areas.
Yes. All of this sounds amazing, and it is totally speaking my language. I'm going to be in Atlanta on Thursday. I'll be at Emory for work, doing on a panel discussion. And part of my goal is, of course, to meet up and go to Emory. I've never been before. I'm looking forward to seeing the campus and a lot of the great scholars and activists there. But also on my list is going to Fine Fabrics, because when I went there another time for work, I mean, well, I didn't go to Fine Fabrics for work. I also included some Fine Fabrics time. That place was ridiculous. I mean, the variety of fabrics that you can get there. I mean, that's a whole day. You could spend a whole day just being in there. It really is a lot. And so I think that sounds wonderful. And New York will be the same. There's so many different things you can do. And do you have a date yet at all that you've been thinking about for the 2020 event?
Our tentative goal is somewhere towards the end of June. We generally do our retreat the third week in July, but we think we're going to bump it up a little bit because we
Okay.
realize that July is a big month for family reunions and vacations. And so we want to
Hmm.
include, other people want to be included, in the retreats that we do. So I think if we bump it up a little bit, that will allow more people to get involved like they want to.
Yes. And do you know when you'll be announcing the dates for that? Because what I plan to do is to include all the information you share with me in the show notes. I'll be sure to put links not just to your page, but to some of the pages of the folks that you've mentioned. So I'd love to be able to kind of put like, oh, she's planning for, I can always say you're planning for June, July 2020. I'm sure people can just come to the page and follow it that way as well.
Right, right. Because we're in the planning stages now, so we haven't locked down a definite date, but we do know it's going to be towards the end of June.
I'm joined today by Alethia Hudson, the creator and curator of So Much Talent, a very popular group on Facebook. Join us now and listen as we talk about savvy shopping at Joann Fabrics, what is happening to the 99-cent sale, nothing good from a consumer's point of view, I think, as well as how do we set boundaries and limits about needs versus wants when it comes to sewing, and what, if anything, is a quote-unquote emergency sewing situation. Here we go.
That's wonderful. I wanted to talk just a little bit in our last few moments about your live video that you did earlier. I think it was a few days ago, and you were talking about some of the changes that Joann's is making in trying to change consumer behavior, or at least that's how I'm seeing it. You were saying that the days of the $1.99 patterns might be gone forever. And talking a lot. I know that a lot of folks, at least I can't say a lot of folks. I can speak for only myself. I know that I myself definitely rely on the $1.99 pattern sales. Or the 99-cent. I still remember the 99-cent pattern sales. And so I would love to talk a bit about what you think is going on there. You were saying that in the video, you said that it's because Joann's is facing so much competition from online retailers, that, and as well as how sometimes at some stores the service is uneven or spotty. Talk a bit about and then one of the things I loved about what you said was we can develop ways to be more independent where we don't have to even rely on these pattern sales or rely on patterns at all. So can you talk a little bit about what you think is going on with Joann's these days?
Well, I can't help but think that Joann's is affected by the online shift. Consumers are now going more towards online, and I mean, we've already seen like Hancock Fabrics and some of the other local stores succumb to online shopping. And I think in order to keep up, Joann's has to make a shift. And we've seen the $1.99 patterns and the, 5 for $5 and all that for so long, but now I'm starting to see the shift, and I know other stores are too, seeing the shift of where now we're seeing more of percentages being taken off the patterns, like 30% off, 40% off. And so we're like, wait, we've been doing this for so long. Where's this coming from? And so I believe that they have to make a shift somewhere, and we do now have a lot more independent designers or some of our crafters or influencers taking part in, some of that fabric, the pattern business. Say, for instance, Mimi G, and you had people like Nikki Revis, Use Your Door. These people, they're pulling people from the community, influencers, to try to capture our business. But something has to shift in order for them to stay afloat, right? The independent designers, pattern makers, they have to make money some kind of way, and we support them. We do. But my thing was, what you're referring to, I was saying that a lot of times, and we've seen this a lot, that we do get patterns, or patterns are created and rotated. Nothing's really new, just a few design elements here and there. And so if you're not wanting to spend the extra money, if you don't want to succumb to the, what's happening with the $1.99 pattern, then we can learn to create patterns from what we already have. There's so many of us that have boatloads of pattern stashed here, stashed there. I think we make it a thrill of the hunt. You're not the only one, but I think we make it a thrill of the hunt to see how many patterns we can stash, and if you're like me, if you be honest, there's many that we haven't sewn from, and I do know there are a few, probably we can count them on hand, who actually buy a few patterns, buy a few fabrics, and they sew up everything they get. I think of people like Erica Bunker, who is amazing.
Yes.
And I think she has like zero to little stash. And
agree. I know someone who I interviewed from one of my IG Live videos, Patrice. She has 7 pieces of fabric in her stash, and she makes gorgeous pieces. She is an excellent sewist, but she does not collect. She doesn't have a mountain of fabric. And I have a mountain range of fabric. And so there's certainly a way that you can be creative and be minimal at the same time, or rather be strategic.
Exactly. And that's one of the things, and you were talking about the challenges that we do, so much talent. That's one of the things that we've known for, is having monthly challenges. And we kickstart each year with a fabric and pattern fast. So that means that if you're participating in the challenge, then you will not buy fabric during the month of January. And last year we added in patterns. So you will not buy patterns during the month of January. You will sew from your stash, and you will use the patterns that you have. And there's a little leeway there. But that's a way of us utilizing what we've stored up for the year, And then it helps.
I love that idea. And it's funny because I think this episode that we're talking, you and I are speaking right now, we're recording everybody in October, but this episode probably won't release until late November or early December. And so it'd be nice to think about what it means to start the year fresh. And that a challenge like that is a nice way to just think about it, So yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. A fabric and pattern fast for the month of January. You said that there's some leeway. I would like to know what type of emergency sewing situations can come up where one would qualify for leeway.
Well, there's those times that you might not have enough fabric, or you might need interfacing, or you might just need a little accent piece or something. So I generally allow 80% of what you sew during the month of January has to come from your stash. So we allow that 20% to add, to embellish, or add a cuff or.
That's what's up. I like that. Shoot, you have me thinking that maybe I will be signing on for January 2020 to participate in the first SMT 2020 challenge. Because that's like a nice way. Of course, how it is in January. People are joining the gym. They're resolving to read this stack of books or whatever. And so this will be something that could be meaningful. I was very impressed with myself because for the month of August, I didn't go to Joann's at all. I didn't even walk in the store, which was like unusual. It's unusual for me. I mean, I'm in that my Joann's so much. People think I work there because and so it's like, they're like, where have you been? I was like, I can't be the only person that's supporting this company and keeping y'all afloat. So y'all have to cultivate other relationships. But But yeah, because you know how it is, especially, I think that that's one of the things that helps to
That's so
mitigate
fun.
some of the frustration that people might have with the corporate brand of Joann's, is that when you have people at your local store that are cool or that do their best or
Right.
whatever. And it was funny because I remember you saying in the live, you do a technique that I also do with the way that the patterns, for example, that McCall's have been divided, that they have the regular 4-digit pattern number. And now they have a new pattern number that starts with the letter R. And it's like R100 and then 3 more digits. And that's on the top of the pattern drawer. And the ones on the top of the pattern drawer are
Right.
exempt from any sales. And so, but they don't ring up. And so, like, I do the same thing you do. I take a photograph of um, of the sales sign, and I bring it into the register. I said, look, McCall patterns are $2.99. This is a McCall pattern. I expect to pay this price. And they'll do it, because, it's not their fault. These folks are making an hourly wage, more or less. They're not the ones setting prices, or they don't set marketing strategy. So why should I be fussing at them? But I'm also, it's somebody's fault. It's not hers, and it's certainly not mine. So, but yeah.
But not for you. Right. Right. And it's a shame you have to do that, but it's happened so many times, that especially for people like you and I and others who go in on a regular basis, you pretty much know how things operate, you know where to find stuff, and you know what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And so when something is amiss, then you say, wait, hold up, that's not how it works, and it's a thing that when you can tell the worker what's up, and so I started doing that. I started, taking shots of things, because then I realized that a lot of times, like I was speaking of in the video, there's a lot of turnover, especially in our store. You get new people all the time, and whether they're versed in the sale or not, I've learned that that's the case. Many times they're not versed in what's on sale.
Mm-hmm.
So if I take a snapshot, then I don't have to waste my time going back and forth.
It's so funny because it seems like, I understand that Joann's, has a bottom line that they need to meet. They want to survive. They're just doing what they believe is best to help increase their profits. But they shouldn't need to make the experience such an unpleasant one. And I feel like it's gotten increasingly difficult to shop at Joann's. I feel like I do a lot of, my job is an English professor, so I read for a living. So I don't mind reading all the fine print in the coupons and reading all the stipulations. And so I'm used to doing that. And I'm sure you're used to doing that too, because you're a shopper and you want to get the best experience. But I'm telling you, if I see another buy 3, get 2, buy 3, get 3 free notions, I don't even go down that aisle anymore. I mean, I used to love to go to Joann's and they had notions 50% off. Simple, 50% off. But now it's not 50% off. Now it's buy 3, get 3 free.
Right.
And I made the mistake a few weeks ago of buying some horsehair braid, and I bought 8 yards, which was my mistake, because apparently if I want, and this was during the buy 3, get 3 sale. My mistake was buying 8. What I should have bought was 6, because I could have bought 3 and gotten 3 free. But I wasn't thinking. I know this was my own fault. But do you know they could not just charge me 50% for the 8 yards that they cut? And so they're not going to do that. So I said, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not going to take that. I went on my IG Live and complained. And then somebody came on and said, Lisa, don't worry about it. Go to Amazon. And do you know, I went to Amazon and I got 50 yards of that braid for what I would have paid for 3 regular price yards at Joann's. Yeah. And I was like, see, this is why they're in trouble.
See, exactly. And that was my point, because come on. We all know it. Amazon is taking over. You know what I'm saying? You can go online just about for anything and pretty much find a good deal. And here's my comeback for the buy 3, get 2 free. I'm like, well, I don't only need but like 1, or 2. And we have to get in the habit of not coming to the more. You know
Exactly.
what I'm saying? Many times we buy stuff, we don't need it, but we buy it because the sale is in front of us. But I
That's
think
so
about,
true.
I can save me even more than that if I just get what I need, you know? And so that's how I look at
Yes,
stuff now, and not being cheap or anything, but we get
that's
taken
right.
in by,
It's
you
true.
know,
And I
what
think
the
that also
off
goes
is
for
and not
patterns
really
as well.
realizing
Like
I don't really
if they
need that.
happen to have patterns buy, three for $5 for some rare sale, it's like, or do I really need that? Do I really need, even though I think you're right, I believe that $5.99 is a great deal for Vogue patterns. I think part of Joanne's problem is that they have always had those patterns. Their regular price was 40% off. Remember, it used to be 50, but the regular price is 40% off. That's the regular price. That they were never selling their patterns at list price. I think they sold quick sew when they first started with quick sew. They did those at list price,
Correct.
but it just basically trains consumers for generations that patterns are regularly priced at 40% off. So now that they're saying you can buy this at 30% off, that doesn't feel like a sale. And so it feels like, I know they're trying to change consumer behavior. I understand that. But I'm not overly enamored with capitalism. And I do not feel like my job is to make sure Joanne's as a company stays in business. I mean, I that's just not some, or any company actually. And so I think that capitalism is based on inequity, and I think that people, like as Joanne's is making all these changes, people aren't making any more money. It's not like we have more money to spend. The reason that people like sales isn't because they're cheap, or it's because they want to extend their dollar so that they can sew and pay their light bill. Like
It, exactly. And that's what we're looking at. That's what I was saying. You know, people are
hmm
going to start shopping where they can still get
right.
good quality product, but at a good price, at a great price. And like you said, Joanne's has to do what it has to
Right.
do, you know, to
And
stay
that's
afloat,
our
but
job.
the
Like my job
consumer
is
is going to
to
look
see
out
the
for
way
them.
that I see it is to kind of conserve my resources or spend my resources in such a way that aligns with my values, as well as helps to promote and preserve, my family and my investment in my future. And I certainly don't want to be, and I know that my sewing dollars are limited. And I think that I'd rather spend my dollars on maybe getting a machine, or maybe getting, as opposed to buying like six notions that I don't really need, or I'm like, okay, well, if I buy three, I get two things free. And what are the two? It's just too much work. All that mental energy that sometimes shopping at Joanne's stuff uses is exhausting.
Right. Exactly. And so that's why I want to teach, and
Yes.
that's why I'm starting to teach others how
Yes.
to look at things differently. You know, instead of collecting all patterns, use what you have and
Yes.
manipulate those patterns. You know,
Yes.
become your designer. You know, you don't have to be perfect, but try to think outside the box. You know, learn about pricing, learn about these different things. And so you can approach your work differently. Then you'll realize you don't have to have all of this. You know, you can work with what you have. And then started buying into quality stuff, not just buy it because
I
you can
love that.
build
And
up
I
your
love
stash.
that you are
Start
providing
buying
people with
quality,
the
you know?
tools for independence, and to say, look, you already have all that you need to work around this system instead of having to take it as they offer it to you. That those 50, 11 million patterns that you've got could help you to create something that you really want, even if it requires mixing and matching, or as you were saying, learning to draft your own sloper, your own bodice block, or whatever. Um, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean it's enjoyable to see others, you know, when they're able to get the vision and then they start doing it and they start creating things, you know, from what they're doing. And so actually
Wonderful.
tonight I start my first designer gown class. Well, ladies how to create a pattern, draft, actually illustrate it, create a pattern,
Oh,
do a mock-up, and then construct it, you know, on a professional
yes,
level,
yes.
and then get a good products. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the big difference. And then too, not to leave our independent designers out because there's so many out there. I think a lot of us rather put our monies into supporting
I agree.
independent designers, people who are really trying to create products.
I agree. Well, this has been so enjoyable, Alethia. I am so grateful for you taking the time to talk with us today. Can you tell us where we can find you on the socials so people can look you up and follow your amazing progress?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me, Lisa. This has been awesome. And your listeners can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, So Much Talent, in it's parentheses GR. I have to say that because there's a Facebook page by the same name. You can also find me on Instagram at So Much Talent. Twitter, I don't use that much. So Much Talent. On Periscope, same name. But I do have a website, AlethiaHudsonDesigns.com, and through the store, you can find some of the videos that I've done. And see,
oh, that's great. Excellent. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been really great.
It's been awesome. And much blessings in all your future endeavors.
To you as well. And thank you so much for taking the time. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Alethia Hudson of So Much Talent as much as I did. Be sure to tune into the show note to find out more information about Alethia's project, website, and multiple offerings, including her many videos. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Stitch Please, the Black Women Stitch podcast. Let's continue the conversation. Come find us on the socials. We're at Black Women Stitch on Instagram, where we have a very active page, and you can also find us on Stitch Please on Facebook. We also would love to hear from you, so feel free to email us at blackwomenstitch@gmail.com. There are 3 big ways you can support this project, and one of them you're doing already. By listening to the podcast, you're really helping us, so thank you for doing that. In addition, if you rate, review, subscribe, and share the podcast with other folks, that helps the podcast to grow, and it also gives the algorithm that manage podcasts information that will also help our podcast thrive. The third way to help the podcast is for those of you all who happen to have a little extra change burning a hole in your pocket. And if you don't have any plans to use it to buy your 20th, or in my case, 378th Big 4 pattern, that's how many I have in my top pattern drawer, about 378 patterns. You can take that money that you would spend at the pattern sale and give it to us. We are accepting donations at our Patreon site, where you can donate as little as $2 a month, or you could buy us a coffee at ko.fi, and small donations are greatly accepted and appreciated. So thank you for considering that. If you would like a transcript of this episode, you can find that at our website at stitchpleasepodcast.com. And we also ask that you check the show notes, where we have lots of additional information and supplemental information for what we discussed in the podcast. You can find affiliate links there for the products that we like. You can find web links to the Black women that we've been talking about here on the show to elevate and center their work. And you can also find the info we mentioned about donations, as well as our email link. All of that is available at stitchpleasepodcast.com. Thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. Come back and we'll help you get your stitch together.